Greetings and God bless. I just wanted to take a look at and talk about classism and the suffocation that is expected of people, the oxygen deprivation that's expected of employees and vulnerable people. When the lockdowns happened, I noticed, so at the low end restaurants, people were very militant about oxygen deprivation. Everybody had to have oxygen deprivation. And this was the employees, and it was the people who were, buying a burrito or something like that. However, the, fancy seafood restaurant where it's like, maybe $30 a plate, people were out and no masking. But the employees, the wait staff had to mask, and I'm sure the cooks had to mask as well. And as we see now, this suffocation, this forced suffocation as a workplace requirement, amongst other things, is still going on. And I mean, little children are having to have oxygen, are being forced to be oxygen deprived by their parents, by their teachers, by grandparents, by the angry, psychotic people. And so I consider this as a symbol of classism, because when a millionaire is flying on their plane, they are not depriving themselves of oxygen. It's very uncomfortable to deprive oneself of oxygen. It impairs your cognitive abilities. It is unwise. The fact that pilots and people are driving while they are willfully depriving themselves of oxygen, like OSHA and the DMV and the FAA, everybody has not done their job because they have they've killed brain cells and jeopardized, just harrowing, just dangers. The public has totally been endangered by this forced oxygen deprivation of employees. And we've seen how the politicians are not depriving themselves of oxygen. We see that they'll do it for theater when the camera is rolling, but then they take it off. So it's classism. And there's some militant people who feel that their own sacrifice, they know how uncomfortable it is, or they tell themselves they're getting used to this oxygen deprivation, and they still want everybody else to do oxygen deprivation as well. And maybe there's some kind of high that you get out of depriving yourself of oxygen, hyperventilation. Anyway, so I just read this article, or I read this headline, and it just made me have to post here. When the person was the person was saying, when nobody else is practicing oxygen deprivation. Now, this is similar to people who decide to stop drinking alcohol, and their buddies still drink alcohol, or maybe one of their friends still drinks alcohol. And that one friend who still drinks alcohol is like, why aren't you drinking alcohol? Or that one friend who's doing drugs, why aren't you doing drugs? Or that one friend who's promiscuous and does, unprotected intercourse. Why are you getting married? That one friend who's a pagan and you become Christian. Why are you Christian? What is strange about this oxygen deprivation cult is they want everybody else to also deprive themselves of this very fundamental thing called oxygen. We are a living being, and breathing is essential. Breathing is a non-negotiable. And the psychotic cult people think that they have a right to deprive us of oxygen. They think they have a right to deprive somebody of oxygen. Now, there are people who enjoy oxygen deprivation. I think, just whippets or something like that. That's fine if that's what you want to do, but you don't get to force me to do whippets. You don't get to force me to do heroin. You don't get to force me to do pot, or whatever. Like, nobody gets to force me to do their recreational substance. So if somebody wants to deprive themselves of oxygen and have a identity concealment, I mean, and the funny thing is 2 years ago it was illegal to go to a bank with identity concealment because somebody could rob a bank. But apparently banks don't care anymore. Banks probably are making more money on some sort of weird scam than actually really being a bank and a safe place. Um, so, so the lady, this she excuse me, she had this article titled, "What do we do when we're the only one who's doing oxygen deprivation? What do we do when we're the only one doing identity concealment?" It is possible. Just consider this. If everybody else is now going in sunshine because sunshine is good for us, is working out because working out is good for us, is eating meat because meat is good for us, is eating fat because fat is good for us, is walking barefoot because being barefoot is good for us, is learning to see naturally because glasses are unhealthy and natural vision is good for us. Perhaps, just possibly consider that taking in oxygen, that is actually good for you. And that's going to be the next cutting edge thing. The next cutting edge thing, folks, is going to be breathing without a barrier, that is actually healthy. And that's going to be the next revolutionary idea. So folks, if you're wondering why other people are actually breathing without a barrier, if you're wondering why people are doing things different than you, just because it was everybody was doing it doesn't mean that it was the right thing. And just know, there's an Oscar Wilde quote: when something is popular, that then you need to question it. So now, for millennia, ever since the beginning of existence, living beings, animals, birds, insects, we breathe oxygen. We take in oxygen. Fish have to have clean water. They can't be in dirty water. They die really quickly. And so when we have a barrier and we're rebreathing all the toxins that we've exhaled, we exhale 250,000 times a day. 250,000 times a day. So when you have this petri dish and you're rebreathing in the toxins that your body was built to exhale and disperse, your body wasn't built to concentrate the toxins. So what's going to happen when you concentrate the toxins? I mean, I cannot believe that other responsible people, thought leaders, like, I can't believe so few just ordinary people have said anything. Yes, there's some great people who have pointed out how insane it is to concentrate. It's as if you literally have it is a face diaper. We have two holes, right? One is where a solid waste leave, and this is where kind of more vapor waste leave. But if we did quantify it is matter that is exhaling. It's just smaller particles. So just imagine that every time you had evacuated your bowels and you kept it at your pants, like at your underwear. Imagine, however many hours you wear identity concealment, oxygen deprivation. Imagine if you were carrying all of the feces that your body excreted, in the 10-hour day that you're wearing a face covering. What would that do to your body? It'd be so incredibly uncomfortable because it's toxic. And that is the same thing with this. So the reason why people are choosing to breathe oxygen again, choosing to show their identity, choosing to let their children and grandchildren see their smiles. The reason why is because it's healthy. And we have the precedent of all of existence behind us. No place in time was such a prophylactic, false prophylactic, a destructive. Nowhere, no other time was something so destructive used that we are aware of. And you know what? I bet insane things like this identity concealment and oxygen deprivation, I bet things like that have occurred in the past. And it was so despicable that it was erased from history because the evil people that did it didn't want us to know. Just like, like we're constantly discovering horrible things about history, about our own history, history or other countries' history. That stuff is coming to light now. So, folks, just know that sometimes people who are doing things differently might be right, and particularly if it's the way it's always been done, like breathing. We come out of the womb breathing. We come out of the womb with a mouth, with a nose that's visible. And we have animals come out of the womb with a nose and a mouth. If somebody is really so afraid of contagion, and if they want to live in a bubble, they can live in a bubble, but not everybody does not have to capitulate to that one person that wants to live in a bubble. And it's absolute psychotic, malignant narcissism to expect the whole world to conform to their wishes, especially when this person expects everybody else to suffocate themselves, to do oxygen deprivation and identity concealment. There's so many things we know that's wrong about those things. And yet there's some psychotic holdouts who maybe they need to be put away in a mental institution. And I know that there are some people who think that I should, because I'm saying people need to breathe the oxygen as it is, as we always have breathed it. I know there's some people, maybe many people, maybe my friends and family will think that to be the case. But the precedent of all of humanity through all of time and all cultures, we have breathed without a barrier. We are an oxygen consuming life form, and we also are a behavioral psychological being, and we need expression. We need unimpaired access to hearing vocal things. So many people with, like, I have some hearing issues, and I can barely understand what people are saying. And it appears that many of the people who are choosing this oxygen deprivation cult and identity hiding thing, they also are talking super quiet. So it's like you cannot hear them at all. So, anyways, if you're upset that people are choosing to breathe oxygen, if you're upset that people are choosing to reveal their identity, just know that all cultures have breathed oxygen. All humans, all animals, all birds breathe oxygen, and it's essential. Unless you, the person in the bubble, is going to pay for all of us to have proper amounts of oxygen and atmosphere and whatever, if you're going to pay the $70,000 for each of us that's going to be around you, if you're going to pay for the proper oxygenation that we require, if we are going to be a pathologically barriered being, it's up to you to pay for the suits, that bioweapons labs use. Because otherwise, this oxygen deprivation is basically self-inflicted brain damage, and It has so many other components. So just know that all cultures, all living life forms have been breathing oxygen, and we need to breathe oxygen. We need to breathe as much oxygen as we breathe without the barrier. And if you are so afraid, you need to stay home and you need to be in your own little bubble. And what I think is the biggest hypocrisy and the biggest exposure about this being an issue of control and classism is that nobody's afraid of other people's pets. So the people who are hysterical about the doing the oxygen deprivation practice, because I think they're trying to sacrifice themselves. It's like a slow suicide. It's like a self immolation kind of a thing, and maybe they're just so stressed about the world and they have nothing really meaningful in their lives. I don't know why anybody would willingly suffocate themselves and erase their identity. But the thing is, these people have pets. These people have their pets play with other people's pets, whether they're masked or unmasked. And I am, I mean, like, you cannot sanitize every hair and every paw and every bit of skin on an animal. And if you do that, that animal is probably not going to live for long, because killing the microbiome on the surface of your animal's skin is harmful. And there's a microbiome of the eyeball and there's a microbiome of the lungs. So doing sanitizer all over your pets is inadvisable, and I doubt people are doing it. So it's clear that the people who are into this psychotic control of the lower classes, because that is who it is, the rich people are not they're not doing the oxygen deprivation. The rich people have their own planes. The rich people are just having their pilots suffocate and their stewardesses suffocate. But the rich people aren't choosing to do it. And the only time they're doing it is in theater, in the performance, when a news camera is on. So I forget what my last point was, but I think you understand, if you are so afraid to be in this very rich soup that we all live in, you need to stay home and be with your own psychoses. But you have no right to draw anybody else into your psychoses. Just because, like, let's say I was a raw food, like 98-degree, raw foodist, and I thought raw food was the only way, the be all and end all. I don't get to tell my family that's what they have to do. I don't get to tell my boyfriend. I don't have to tell my friends. I don't get to force my friends, family, intimates, my clients. I don't get to force them to do what I think is the best thing possible. Just like if I was a paleo fanatic or keto, I don't get to force stuff that's actually going to be helpful to them. And just like and they don't get to force me to be vegan or keto or paleo. So, and it's just so incredible that people are still, I mean, it's June 2022, and I am still seeing stuff about people requiring others to be oxygen deprived, and requiring like, so many people and places are impersonating doctors. And, we don't have, uh, it's just it's amazing, and it's amazing how irresponsible the trusted agents of the public good have been. And I know, people are blackmailed, or they're bribed, or they're brainwashed. I understand that, and it just blows my mind. So, anyways, if you're a decent person, please reject this classist thing of oxygen deprivation for entry level workers. It's wrong. It's just incredibly unethical, and it has to stop. I mean, it's just It's a nightmare, and I feel so bad for entry level employees right now because like they're in this like just like a medical fascist state, and it's not even medical. It's not medical. No, it's like this fascist. It's a ritual. It's a magic ritual state because number one, this barrier is nothing medical. It is not helping anybody. So it's really just a symbolic gesture. It's like a capitulation, and it's just so horrible like that people are being forced to do oxygen deprivation for work. They're forced to do oxygen deprivation and identity erasure. Like people are being forced to out of existence while they're standing there doing this crappy job, and they're underpaid and they're undersupported, there's understaffed, and it's a terrible work environment. Nobody protects entry level employees other than like raping somebody or murdering somebody, or cutting off hands. Nobody's protecting entry level employees. Nobody cares about entry level employees. Just companies just want warm bodies that do the best job with the worst least amount of help, and everybody's like, oh well, that's just capitalism. And I think that companies can, I think it's great to do a good job, and I think companies do deserve to get work out of people that they're paying, but I think companies also do have an ethical role to play of making a decent workplace, and they don't care. It's and nobody does anything about it. So I just feel so sorry for entry level employees that already have a hard enough job, and then they're forced into this ritual, this oxygen deprivation ritual, and these poking stabby rituals, and these nasal break the crib form plate ritual. It's like this black magic ritual. It is so unfair because entry level jobs are pretty bad. They're pretty horrible, and it's just made like 10,000 times worse, and nobody cares. Like rich people, wealthy people, middle class people, they're all like calling entry level people lazy because they don't want to work in this kind of condition. People are calling homeless people lazy drug addicts. And yeah, yes, there's lazy drug addict. There's lazy rich white people. There's lazy rich drug addict people too, and it's just like, if that drug addict was rich and just glamorous, people would love that. And the thing is, they do. There's tons of drug addict, rich people that have tons of followers, that people want to, be a role model. There's drug addict murderers like what Hunter S. Thompson, and people who commit suicide. People totally idolize. It's all classism, folks. If you take the demographic you most despise, and you put a lot of money on them, let's take a homeless drug addict, or let's take a really old person. They're really rich, like, okay, so they're not homeless, but they're on fentanyl, or something, but but they're a millionaire. And so when you have a millionaire, you like, people make you look good. So it's all this superficial thing. It's not like the fabulous people that are on Telegram or whatever, Instagram rather. um, they're not necessarily great people. They're just featured in a positive light. So folks, have some integrity, have some standards. Like people who really, number one, like pay attention, give your attention to people that you really know. And I mean like locally, your friends, your family, people in your church, people in your community, the nice person at the coffee shop, the nice employee at the grocery store. Like really put your attention on that, not these like creations, these theatrical artists, that are, whether they're political or musical or whatever. It's all theater. So and I all people like is money. They just like rich people. They like this fantasy of what wealth is. And, when we look closely at wealthy people, they're miserable people. They are drug addict. They are like totally weird, twisted, you know, soulless creatures a lot of the time. And or they're nice people running from themselves because they haven't found God. And yet, you know, people are still into this illusion of wealth, and you know and they like the this display. So with the masking. And if you are a wealthy person, like stand up for those employees and allow those, like ask places where you patronize, like tell the restaurants to let the employees breathe and have their full face, like because people are being erased by the masks. People are being erased by the oxygen deprivation, and rich people are just content with that too. Like, come on. I know there's got to be a few rich people who care and don't want people to suffocate. And we know now that the mask is not scientific, it's not medical. We know that all the other things aren't either. It's all occult. It's all just, if you want to do it, just like if you want to get tattoos, all right. If you want to smoke cigarettes, that's up to you. I don't want to breathe your secondhand smoke. I don't want to see your pentagram tattoo, but you can do it. God gave you free will, and God gave me free will, and that's what we're operating on. And I know the Satanists are like, well, you don't get to have your free will because Satan rules the world, and but I'm not in Satan's dominion, and a lot of people are not. So, yeah. So I just, if you don't like class disparity, stand up for the entry level worker and tell the managers and, hit headquarters at your favorite places. Say, let people breathe, let people have their face back. Start being human, because this forced oxygen deprivation and the identity concealment is just inhumane, and it's gone on far too long. And there's going to be crazy people who are irrational, but they should not be in charge of children or vulnerable people. And it's a free country, and if everybody wants to like hop on one leg for a year, that's your choice. But I don't have to. You don't get to force me to hop on one leg for a year. So I hope I made my point. Thanks for listening. God bless.